Hi, everyone. Good afternoon or good morning, depending on where you are. Welcome, welcome. We are having our first webinar of 2026. So nice to see you all. I know it's been a little while, but we are happy to be back and looking forward to having a great session today. I think there are a few people who are still joining us, but I think that most people who have been on our webinars kind of know what to do. If you want to say a little hello in the chat box, it is open for you to greet us and let us know where you're coming from. If you're here, hopefully you're here to talk about or listen to our presentation about outreach, tips, tricks, and tools for safe route success. We're really excited to share some ideas with you and also hope to hear some great ideas from you all about how you run your outreach. So I'll give people a few minutes to join. And if you are kind of jumping on and saying a quick hello, if you could share your name, where you're coming from. And also it's 2026. I know it's kind of a little too late to say Happy New Year, but if you want to share something that you're excited about for 2026 when it comes to your Safe Routes work, we'd love to hear that from you. So what do you have going on? What's coming up in the next few months? What's new and exciting in your Safe Routes work for 2026? So we will give you all a moment to hop in, say a quick hello, let us know where you're joining from, and let us know what you're looking forward to for this year. And sorry, I didn't change my name here, but a lot of you know me. I'm Corey Johnson with the Safe Routes Partnership. I'm our Senior Program and Engagement Manager. I am here in a still snowy Baltimore, Maryland. I have only seen snow for like the past week, and I'm very much looking forward to the return of grass at some point. So hello from Maryland. And hi, everybody in the chat. Nice to see you all. Someone just they're looking forward to an early spring. That is me. All right, so go ahead, keep sharing in the chat. We'll go ahead and get started. We have a lot to cover today. But just a quick introduction to this series. This is our Walk, Ride, Enroll webinar series we've been hosting for a few years now. We're really excited to bring a few more webinars to you this year. This is our first one for 2026, all about community outreach tabling. And for those of you who might be new to our webinars or not familiar with the partnership, we are a national organization working to advance safe walking, biking, rolling to schools and also other destinations, parks, grocery stores, libraries, just places where people go in their daily lives. And really all about building and improving health and well-being for people of all ages, backgrounds, abilities, disabilities, and building really healthy, thriving communities for everyone. So that's my little quick introduction. And like I mentioned, I'm one of our hosts for today. I'm Corey. A lot of you already know me. And I'm so excited to join our new team member here at the partnership, Laura Harris. Some of you might have met Laura before, but if you haven't, I'll go ahead and introduce my wonderful co-host and have her share a little bit about herself. Oh, also, I forgot to mention, since today is about outreach tabling, Laura and I are going to share some of our outreach tabling must-haves, best hits. So my outreach tabling must-have is butcher paper and markers. And I will talk about this more a bit later. So it's a little sneak peek for what's coming. And I'll hand it over to Laura to say a quick hello too.
Thank you, Corey. Hi, everybody. My name is Laura Harris. I'm a relatively new technical assistance manager here with the Safe Routes Partnership. I'm based here in New Orleans, Louisiana, where the flowers just started blooming yesterday. So I guess it's springtime now. Um, Really excited to be doing this webinar with Corey. So hopefully be seeing some of y'all more frequently here. I put down my outreach tabling must-have is maps because I love maps. I get really excited about maps, and I think when people see themselves in the map, they have stuff to say about it. And I think that's one of the most engaging ways to really collect feedback doing Safe Routes outreach tabling. So thanks y'all
Awesome.
for being here.
Thanks, Laura. So nice to have you. And very jealous of the blooming flowers in
It might go
France.
below freezing again next week, though. That's the thing. You never know.
We will see. Okay, so to kick us off today, just a few housekeeping reminders. So our webinar is being recorded. We will share the recording afterwards, and we'll share the links that we mention in the presentation in the chat box afterwards as well. So keep an eye out for a follow-up email about that. We'll also post the recording and slides on our website, and we'll share out that link. So you will have all the information that you need. And then we also love to get questions from you all. So if you have questions, the Q&A box is open, and we'll save the chat kind of like for more general chatter and resource sharing. So we'll give you all a few reminders to add comments and thoughts in the Q&A box. We'll also have a few mentee comment boards going on a bit later. So that'll be another way for you all to engage and share. And then questions can go right into the Q&A box. And then just a few other housekeeping slides. I think a lot of you kind of know that we are here to help and support your Safe Routes efforts. I can post a link in the chat box to our Safe Routes Learning Center, where we offer workshops and trainings outside of the webinars like we do here. We're also available to help in lots of ways, whether that's doing customizable workshops or training or presentation for you and your community. Our technical assistance team, which I'm a part of, Laura's a part of. We love to come and see what's happening in your communities and support your work. This can be virtual or in person. And I also dropped our consulting email address. It's also on this slide. You're also just welcome to reach out to me if you have questions about how we can support you. And like I mentioned, we can customize things to suit whatever you're working on, whether that's Safe Routes to School, planning, policy, programs, community engagement, state network support, designing your own thing. We're here to help you to reach your Safe Routes goals. So just let us know, and we would be happy to help. All right, so why we are here today? We are talking about outreach tabling and kind of evolving and moving beyond the beloved outreach swag bag, which, you know, we love those. I love a good tote. Maybe they're, you know, keychains or bike lights or pencils or whatever people are handing out these days, which is great. And that's definitely one kind of one way to do outreach tabling, or one staple of outreach tabling. But we're also thinking about how we can use outreach tabling to develop more deep connections within the community, and kind of move beyond some of these more transactional methods of outreach tabling to one that's a bit more interactive and meaningful. So a bit about why we do outreach tabling and why we're focusing on this is our first webinar back. We know that outreach tabling is a really effective way to do lots of things, whether it's share information about Safe Routes or your program or an upcoming project, gather information, just a way to like connect with community members, or even increase visibility around Safe Routes programs or upcoming projects. These are just a few of the reasons why we do outreach tabling, but there's a lot more. I'm sure that those of you who are with us today who have done outreach tabling are probably kind of familiar with this with this process and why we do it. So like I said, the session is really about kind of moving beyond just kind of like having somebody come to your table, say a quick hello, grab a fun giveaway, and then walk away. How can we kind of keep people there, keep people engaged, and really maximize the moment? To be a bit more interactive, a bit more meaningful, and to offer more of an experience at your outreach table. So somebody comes in or comes up to your table, and how can you really make the most of that time so that you're getting something from the experience and the visitor is getting something as well. So when we think about outreach tabling, or at least the way that I think about it, Laura is also somebody who's done a lot of outreach tabling. So you'll see lots of pictures in our presentation too of like me at outreach tables doing my thing and Laura doing her thing. So this is something that we're both really excited to talk about. And one thing that I was thinking about just getting started is, what is your outreach goal? So if you're going out and you're doing an outreach tabling event, what's the purpose? Like I mentioned in the past slide, is it just to increase your program visibility? Is it to deepen community engagement? Are you gathering information about an upcoming project? Whether that's, Safe Routes School Action Plan, maybe you're planning a demonstration project, or if maybe you're doing data collection and trying to get more information about travel modes. Maybe it's about just assessing the community's attitudes around walking, biking, and rolling. So what are you trying to get out of your outreach tabling experience? And there's also the information sharing piece. So maybe there's a new project or program or safety tip that you really want to get across the community. So what information do you really want to share during your outreach tabling experience? And whatever your goal is, that should really inform what your outreach will end up looking like. So that can include everything from the location of your table, the date and time, materials, activities, staff, community partners, figuring out what's the best setting and what are the best activities to help you reach the outreach goal that you have. So just a few things that I think about when I'm kind of thinking about putting together an outreach table. One thing I actually think a lot about is the location. So going to where people are, especially if I'm trying to reach people who I might not normally reach in a town council meeting or a back to school night. I might need to kind of switch it up a bit and think about, where is my core audience? Where can I go to meet people? And that might involve getting a little bit creative as far as the locations that we're thinking about. So here are some of the places that I've either done outreach tabling or seen outreach tabling being done. School events, parks, grocery stores, transit stops are a great way to do great places to do outreach tabling. I haven't done one at a transit stop, but I have seen people doing outreach at transit stops, which is really smart. Libraries, of course. The picture here is this is from Montgomery County Safe Routes to School here in Maryland, and their coordinator has done a lot of outreach at their local Department of Motor Vehicles, or MVA as we call it here in Maryland. So this is Dawan at the MVA doing outreach, talking about pedestrian safety, community fairs, festivals, farmers markets, health centers. If you all have other ideas as far as where to do outreach tabling, feel free to drop them in the chat as well. Laura just put in art walk nights, which I know you do. You've done, or I guess, I don't know if there was one recently that you were a part of. But yeah, lots of different cool ideas for where to do your outreach tables. And then something else you really think about is how are we reaching the people who we really want and need to hear from? Again, people who might not be coming to town council meetings, conferences, back to school night. Some of like these other more, formal events or formal listening sessions. How can we reach people, make sure that we have a nice group of voices that are represented? And so these are a few ideas to think about how you can reach your priority populations. One could be to table with another community group, so pair up or pair up for a larger community event that might reach a different population than you might normally reach in some of your school outreach. Even hiring community members to staff outreach tables or asking for volunteers. In the picture here, this is an outreach I was doing at a library in DC, and I have a wonderful community partner there, Sweets, who came on board, is from the community and has a lot of really great outreach tabling ideas. So I brought her on board to reach the community that she lives in and works in and cares a lot about, and it totally enhanced the experience. And also asking people how and where they like to receive information. Do people like this kind of in-person, face-to-face interaction? Asking people, who are the trusted messengers in your community? Or if there's a concern in your community, who do you reach out to? So also using this opportunity to really gather some feedback from community members around, how they like to be engaged and participate in outreach tabling. And of course, tailoring your table to your audience. So having multilingual materials, music, decorations, theme tables for holidays and celebrations, that's a lot of fun. So thinking about how to kind of make things a bit more, customizable and geared towards specific holidays, cultural celebrations, or even just seasonal tables, like do a winter wonderland or celebrate spring and kind of have it be a bit more fun and festive. I know some of you who've been to my webinars before have seen pictures of my outreach tables. This is an example of kind of like a standard outreach table for me, which has I'm an artful person, so I have a lot of art supplies and bright colors on my outreach table. Yours does not have to look like mine, but I think the setup really matters as far as how you can bring people in and engage people. So I usually have a bright table covering, markers, stickers, signs. A lot of this is stuff that I bought from the dollar store years ago and still have. So some of this is 8 years old. So I'm always looking for budget-friendly, reusable tabling options. And then for doing outreach tabling for kids, I try to keep things bright and colorful and kid-friendly. Although I actually use the same table setup for adults, and they love it just as much as the kids do, sometimes even more. So this is just an example of how setup matters and how they can really help create a nice warm and welcoming experience for people who are coming to your outreach table. And then just a few ideas about things you can share during outreach tabling. So sometimes I always like to think about, showing up and what am I here to say? What am I here to share with people? So sometimes I just share information about safe routes to school. Here's what it is, here's how to get involved. I try to include some sort of like pedestrian or bicycle safety tip in my outreach tables, and I have some examples of that a bit later. Also sharing about upcoming projects and events. So if there's a Walk and Roll to School Day coming, or if there's a new piece of infrastructure, or if there's a demonstration project, you can use outreach tabling to let people know about things that are coming up, especially if it's something that might change or interrupt their daily routine, giving them a heads up like, hey, this street might be closed because there's a school streets event happening on Thursday. Want to make sure that you know. This is a great opportunity to kind of spread the word about changes that are happening in the community. Same thing with program or policy changes. Maybe there's a new policy around arrival or dismissal, and you want to do some outreach tabling to raise awareness about that. And then new infrastructure, like I just mentioned. And again, this is not an exhaustive list. There are plenty of other things you can share at your outreach table, but these are a few that we came up with here. And then also, what can you learn during outreach tabling? So you can learn a lot, whether it's traffic safety concerns from the community, feedback on projects that you have going on. So if you're doing a demonstration project, asking people, is this making it safer to, walk around your community? What would you change? What else would you like to see? Popular and least popular travel modes. So building our understanding around how people are actually getting around their communities. Even getting feedback about the types of activities people are interested in. So if you're just trying to gauge, what activity should we do next? Should we do a group walk and roll? Should we do a bike rodeo? Should we do a walking school bus? What do people actually want to do and be involved in their community? And then it can also be a great way to recruit volunteers. So if you're thinking about an event that's coming up and want to get some more support, creating an outreach table and getting some more building your capacity to do all the great safe routes work that you want to do. So again, this is not an exhaustive list, just a few ideas that we put together here. And then lastly, before I turn things over for you all to share some of your ideas, I always like to use outreach tabling as an opportunity to have meaningful conversations with people. And so some of the questions that I kind of like start out with as I'm doing the outreach tables, first, I just love to hear people talk about their community and what they love about their community. I think that's a really nice, engaging and welcoming first question. I also ask people a lot of times, what would make it easier to walk, bike, or roll in your community? And either that prompt or just telling people to respond to the question or the prompt, I would walk, bike, and roll more if. And also asking people, what's your favorite place to walk, bike, and roll? And if people say nowhere because it's dangerous or there are no sidewalks or people are speeding, that also gives me really useful information that I can then take back to inform future projects. So these are some conversation starters that I like to use during outreach tabling. Again, I'm sure you have others. I'm sure Laura has great ones too. These are just a few that I use in my outreach tables. So I'm going to pause here and drop a Menti in the chat. And I would love to hear from you all. Give me 1 second. Okay. So Laura and I shared some of our outreach tabling must-haves, and I'm really curious to hear from you all about what are some of your outreach tabling must-haves. So what's going on when you all are out in the communities that you're working with? What are your must-haves? What's on your table? What are those fun things that kind of make your outreach special? So I'll go ahead and give you all a few moments to drop some ideas on our Menti. And we'll also be saving this Menti, so all the ideas that you all come up with, we can share these out afterwards too. So what's on your outreach tables? Table cloths, trivia wheel. I don't have a trivia wheel or like a prize wheel, but I really want one because they look like they're so much fun. I don't know, Laura, do you have a prize wheel or have you done a prize wheel?
I have not. I have definitely seen them at other tables. So maybe we need to get on that.
I know. I like those. Stickers, love stickers. snacks, reflective slat bracelets, maps, markers, traffic lights, helmet decorating. That sounds fun. Bubbles. I love bubbles and bubble makers. I also don't have one of those, but you gave me an idea for my next outreach table to bring bubbles. I think they're super fun. Post-it notes. Standing in front of the table instead of behind it is more welcoming. Yeah, so really like, stepping up physically and reaching out to people. Love that. Interactive board with magnets, flyers, iPad, reflective incentives, whiteboard with questions, a couple of nice people. Sometimes that's all that you need, just nice people and a friendly smile. Love that. Helmets, bike blenders, yes. All right, great. So thank you all for sharing some of your ideas. Like I mentioned, we will keep this resource list and we'll share it out with all of you at the end. Appreciate your feedback on what you have on your outreach tables. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Laura to talk a bit about her outreach tabling in a box and share some really helpful and great tips for how she puts together her outreach table. So Laura, I will hand it over to you.
Thanks, Corey. So yeah, we're calling this section Outreach Tabling in Box, trying to just like give you all the essentials, and including a checklist. We're going to drop this new resource checklist later, on for y'all to could download and adapt as you like. So kind of high level, like we want to create something that's really simple and repeatable that you can just bust out for meaningful outreach every time. You want it to be something where it's not stressful to do this. You have it all ready to go, and you want it to be something you can easily just connect with people. You're going to see a lot of pictures from New Orleans because that's where I've lived and worked. I worked for many years for the Bike Easy, which is the bicycle advocacy organization here in New Orleans, and the Complete Streets Coalition. So I'm gleaning a lot of pictures from our outreach here that you'll see here. Next slide. So your most basic essentials, you want to have any tabling outreach is ideally some kind of tablecloth or banner so people know like what you are even associated with. Because if you just see somebody with a bunch of paperwork at a table, you're not going to have any idea what that person is there for, what they're trying to communicate. So just having a very clear banner that says safe routes to school or whatever you're tabling for, right? Some kind of clear signage. And so you can have a little just like, how do you get to walk to school? Like a prompt that's just like inviting people to come up and answer it at the table. You want to have clipboards or a tablet to collect sign-in information and any other kind of information you're aiming to gather from your table on a more higher level. You want to have pens, markers, sticky notes, things like this, so people can interact with your engagement activities at the table, and some kind of handouts of a takeaway so that they can go home and take the message with them. And we're going to get more into kind of details for how all of these things can look. But these are kind of high level, like if you're going to have anything, have these essentials. Go ahead. So a couple engagement tools, and again, we'll get into details of these, but a couple of like kind of our best hit engagement tools is a comment board or a prompt. I think Corey shared some pictures earlier of what a comment board that could just look like, literally just some butcher paper for people to write like, I don't like walking on like Washington Avenue because they go too fast or whatever. Some way to collect that feedback on safe routes to school or whatever you're trying to collect feedback on. And as I mentioned before, maps, visuals. I'm a super visual person. I think having visuals of safe routes, like a great example of what safe routes could look like, or an example from the community that you're working within, clearly on the table is going to be, people are going to see that, they're going to connect with it, they're going to have something to say and to engage with. So a comment board or a map is some of your kind of like best hits engagement tools. Next slide. Interactive activities. The group I worked with, New Orleans Complete Streets Coalition, they have this really cool tabling set up with like complete streets elements like bollards and like these little mats that look like a crosswalk and a bike lane. Even there's like a bioswale one in here. Really cool things that people can interact with. Of course, swag, like we don't want to just totally diss on the swag bag. Of course, like swag that's also like aligned with your goals, like safety gear, reflective gear, something that reminds people of complete streets or of safe routes to school, something like this. Always a great engagement tool as well. So for staffing your table, you want to have, of course, at one to two minimum active staff. If you have like a lot of engagement activities, you might want to have more people. You also want to have someone capturing feedback. So like collecting all of the stuff that comments, map dots, whatever, having pictures that one prove that you were ever tabling somewhere so you can tell the story, pictures of folks engaging. That stuff's really valuable to kind of tell the story of how you're collecting the information that you want to see potentially in your Safe Routes to School plan later. And you want to have those roles, clearly defined so people know, people that are staffing your table just know what they're doing. Okay.
Thanks, Laura.
And all right, go ahead.
So we are, let's move on to our outreach tabling best hits, and then I'll come back to the mentee in a little bit. So basically, these are some general ways that Laura and I, run our outreach and, set up our tables and kind of create that experience for people as they're engaging with us. And then we both have some activities that we do at outreach tables that we really like and have been really successful and can be very adaptable and work in lots of different types of settings or for different audiences. And so we wanted to share a few of our outreach tabling best hits with you all to give you some more ideas for what to include in your next outreach table. So, Laura, I think you're first up with the photo booth, which is actually one of my
Yes.
favorite ones too. But I'd love to hear a little bit about how you put yours together and what yours look like.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many ways it could look, so feel free to jump in with your ideas as well. And my experience is mostly like using that setup that I was describing that has like all these elements of complete streets, and it has like having really cool props that can kind of tell the story. Here you see some like kind of street signs. This is like one day, or a fake like transit sign that talks about encouraging transit. So having like little bubbles that say like, I love to walk and bike to school, or just little things that people can hold up and take a picture with, or like kind of like in this concept, like elements of what a good safe routes to school plan or program could include in the photo. That way you can just like have an image of people just like holding stuff that like kind of tells the story of, what you're kind of working towards. And this is a way that people can really, they could make their own sign and hold it up for the photo booth as well. And this is just a really fun, like easy way to get folks engaged, and it can really create some like really fun shareable stories you can post on social media and newsletters and help center your plan around. Go ahead. So some setup, like I mentioned, just kind of like having prompts so people can make their own signs, or having some kind of pre-written signs that folks can just like hold up. It could be in front of a simple background, or like what you see in this example, they actually have some really cool tapestries that have a visual of like a complete streets before and after. So you could even have a backdrop that's like in front of, if you have some kind of image of what you want good safe routes to school to look like in your community, like in front of that image, as well, could also be an option. Corey, do you want to add anything about your favorites for the photo booths?
Yeah, I also love ones where people can like respond to a prompt or hold up their own sign, like, I love walking and biking because, or my favorite place to walk or bike, is people can just like write their own sign and hold it up. I love that. I also went to like a really great safety day event a few years ago where they had a photo booth and like your photo came out immediately. Like there was like I mean, it wasn't a Polaroid because it was like a big photo machine. I think I might have a picture of it somewhere in this presentation. But basically, you could go hold up a sign, take your picture, and get your picture immediately, and actually have it hanging on my refrigerator. It's like my mom and I holding up a traffic safety sign for safety day and something like that. Again, like creates an experience, and it's just a way to kind of, enhance what an outreach table can be. And we also like shared a lot of really great safety tips as we were waiting to get our pictures taken. And so I love the idea of giving people like a little like photo takeaway too, if uh if that's possible. So that's probably like one of my favorite photo booth tips. Take away if you can, and then also people making their own signs to hold up that they can leave or take with them. Laura, there's actually a question here in the chat which is related to this slide about if there's a photo release form that I don't know if you've had people sign photo release forms at your outreach tables or not.
Um, I'm not sure if we have in our library a photo release form,
So at
Corey.
the partnership, we haven't done photo release forms. If it's at a school, we'll usually kind of like follow the school's photo release protocol. A lot of times actually take pictures of people's heads, hands, backs of kids, backs of people, especially if I plan on posting them or publishing them. So you'll see some of my pictures a bit later that just have people's hands, just have backs of heads, especially in like a large public event where I'm not sure what the photo release policy is, or it's hard to get a photo release from everybody. I ask people first, like, can I take a picture of you just working on your, craft? Can I take a picture from the back of you? And just get consent that way. If anybody has other experiences with getting photo releases, you can drop that in the chat. That would be great. But that's usually what I do when I'm out doing outreach, and just publish things that don't have people's faces unless they tell me that I can publish them.
Yeah, mostly we've done photo releases for youth, like if we're working like within a school environment or something. I wouldn't worry about it so much if you're just like tabling at a public outreach fair or something like that. But always good to ask for consent. Another thing you can do is like beyond just taking photos, taking videos and actually have folks tell a little story and capturing that. It's, you're literally capturing a real story of someone's experience, walking or biking to school or getting somewhere. And also good to always just like get folks contact, share with them, the documentation after the fact.
And Laura, I think this was another one of yours too, the visioning map.
Yeah, so like I said, love maps. This is a fun example from A Ride for Our Lives, which was a ride organized here in New Orleans after we unfortunately lost too many people on bikes to fatalities due to traffic violence. So this is a group put this together. I love how like DIY it is. You can see like the not great handwriting on the legend, but it gets the point across, which I love. And it's like, making a big map and asking folks to kind of give that place-based feedback and actually putting, a note on the map indicating what is a hazard, or what they would like to see in different locations. Next slide. So for the visioning map, basically you just want to have a really big map. It could be like on a canvas like the previous slide, or just a big poster. Here's something I was involved with recently around a corridor called St. Claude here in New Orleans. So we had little stickers that indicated like different things that people find a hazard or things that they would like to see. So you could do like a color coding where red means a different kind of hazard, or we even had symbolized versions to represent different kinds of hazards. And then you could have green to represent like, I would like to see a crosswalk here. I'd like to see more trees here. Just let people build the world they would love to see. And that's, to me, I think is definitely the most sort of inviting um, engagement activity. And make sure you have clear instructions, or else your map's going to get really confusing to look at. So make sure people know how they're putting dots on there. But to me, this is really my top hit, I would say. And some of the prompts for the maps, you can say, where do you feel unsafe? Where do you think improvements should happen? And asking, just kind of understanding what the routes are that people are already taking. So like getting a sense of where kids travel. So it doesn't have to be just dots on the map. It could also be, I've done mapping exercises where folks are actually drawing the routes that they take. And then you can see like, oh, wow, a lot of people are taking this way. I didn't realize that. So it's a really great way of collecting all that information.
Now I will jump in and talk a bit about my comment boards. I think a lot of you have heard me talk about, you've probably seen them in presentations, but this is literally my outreach table go-to. I have a little comment board happening at basically every outreach table that I do. I took this idea from a good friend of mine who is an artist, and in her studio, she would just always have butcher paper on her long work tables. And so we would come and like meet or create, and people would always just jot down different ideas or doodle on her butcher paper. And so it's just something that stuck with me for it's like 13 years now. So I love a good butcher paper comment board. But basically, this is my this is like all my outreach tables start with this. And this is a really great way to build something that's create something that's engaging, that's bright, where I can gather information. I love like a DIY moment, so it doesn't take a whole lot of setup. And well, it's not any sort of like, as robust as doing, a formal survey or a listening session. It still gives me a lot of really useful information that I can then take back to, create a different activity or move a project forward. So I love this because it's really simple. It can be butcher paper. Sometimes I use like that colorful, like bulletin board paper. That's worked. Markers, maybe some stickers. These little pieces of paper here, just like little mini paper collages that I did. I've had these for years too, so I just pull them out, tape them on, and it creates like a really nice, visually engaging setup right away that really draws people in. And I also always put the name of the event and the date just so that I know where I was and where this feedback is from. And I always take a picture because I don't always save my butcher paper. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't, but I always take a picture just so that I can make sure that I have that feedback documented and can then share back with community members, post on social media, share with local decision makers. We have documentation of what actually happened. And this is nice because you can kind of mix and match and ask all kinds of questions, and people write all kinds of interesting responses. So this one is from a youth traffic safety town hall that I did a few years ago. It was a bunch of high school students. And so I just asked them, what's your favorite place to walk, bike, or roll in your community and why? And so people, they would say, I like to walk to the mall, or I like to walk or bike to school, or I don't walk to school because there are no sidewalks or because there's speeding. So it's nice to be able to get a sense from people about a positive question, like what's your favorite place? And then also asking the why is really important too. So if people are saying that they like walking to a place because there are flowers or because they can walk with friends, that's really great information that tells me about what makes people feel comfortable traveling around their community. Um, this is another one that I've done. This is for some library outreach that I did. This was it might have been during National Bike Month. And so we were talking about both drivers slowing down as they're, around library zones, school zones specifically, and then also ways that people who are walking can think about like their visibility. So, there are a lot of students who are talking about how they wear brighter reflective clothing as they're walking around their community because it helps drivers see you, and then also telling drivers to be aware of when you're walking or when you're driving around a school zone or library zone to slow down and look and see who is around you. And I titled this little table "Crafting in Conversation. Let's talk traffic safety." So again, there's like a nice, fun, welcoming message. I have buttons on the table. I have bookmarks on the table. What's fun? What's engaging? What'll really pull people in? So having like that little encouraging message is also really helpful. I'm also inviting visitors to talk to you. Somebody mentioned maybe standing in front of your table and pulling people in, talking to people as they're walking in. I think it was somebody else, Mandy, it might have been you talking about the prize wheel being great for some of the introverts who, might not want to like, step out and come and approach people. Having some sort of prize wheel or bright thing on the table can be a way to facilitate that interaction in a way that feels comfortable for everyone. A few other prompts that I use, like I mentioned, what do you love about your community? What would you change? Favorite way to travel around town. I also ask people, what is something that you wish people knew about your community? So again, I use this as an opportunity both to talk about traffic safety, but also to do some just general community engagement and community research so that I can learn a bit more about where I'm working or who I'm working with, especially if I'm doing outreach tabling in a community where I'm not from or I'm not familiar with. Asking people a question about the place where they live also helps kind of build that trust and show people that you're interested in them beyond whatever information it is that you're either trying to share with them or take from them. So just getting to know each other on a different level, and making this a bit less transactional and more interactive. This is also a really great example of a comment board. So this is from a small community in Colorado. Does not have a lot of capacity for large outreach tables, not a lot of staff, but they're just kind of like trying to start their Safe Routes journey and wanted to find a way to gather some very baseline feedback from community members. So before a survey, before a listening session, they weren't ready for that yet. So I said, let's just do like a comment board at your annual town square fair and see what happens. And so they set up this outreach table at their annual community event, had a nice tablecloth, piece of white paper, some markers, and they just asked people to talk about what would make it safer in their community to travel around town, and got some really nice feedback that they wouldn't have normally gotten if they just sent out a survey or did a town hall meeting. So it was a nice first step in kind of getting people more aware of what Safe Routes is, and having people share some of their information in a really positive way. You can even see like some of the pictures here. There are little drawings on here. This is a really rural community where a lot of people actually ride horses. So there's a picture of of animals on this comment board. So this is a great way to just get some feedback if you're just starting out with Safe Routes and want to gather some very general feedback. Great opportunity to do so. And again, some additional prompts. I also love using the five senses, so asking people what would a safe street look like, what would it sound like, what would it feel like, what would it taste like, what would it smell like. You get some really creative ideas from questions like that. And lastly, this is a DOT survey that was done by a PTA parent in a small town in California. They're hosting a community bike rodeo and wanted to get some feedback from families. And so they created a really fun DOT survey with poster board, markers, DOT stickers, a QR code to a survey, and they prepared all this in advance, set it up in a really nice, fun, and engaging way, and just asked one simple question: how do you get to school? So they kept it simple. They had one question. If people wanted to provide more feedback, they could go to the survey. As you can see, they decorated it. They have it in English and Spanish. They have a QR code. And so this was a really nice, fun setup too for another community that was just starting out with Safe Routes, just gathering some baseline information, and wanted to get some community feedback. And then this is just like another DOT survey that I did that was Safe Routes to Healthy Foods related. So it's a little food themed DOT survey. Again, simple setup, bright and colorful, easy to kind of participate, and easy to adapt for different audiences. So those are some of our best hits. I know we have like 17-ish minutes left, so I'm going to pass it over to Laura for one more thing, and we'll circle back and hear a bit more from you all and take some of your questions. If you all have questions, if you want to drop them in the Q&A box, that would be really helpful. We have a lot of great ideas going on in the chat, and sometimes it's hard to see your questions amongst all the great ideas. So questions in the Q&A box and general comments in the chat, and we'll get to your questions in a bit. So Laura, I'll hand it back over to you.
Thanks, Corey. I just want to say I really love the idea of bringing the senses into it. I think thinking about, like, oh, a safe street might be like quieter, wouldn't smell like pollution, reveals like so many ways that maybe people can take action that they wouldn't think of otherwise. I love that as
Yeah.
a comment prompt. So I just wanted to bring around, the importance of doing follow-up too, is like, sometimes people are just like at a tabling fair and they're just like taking a bunch of stuff and they're not really looking at it. So that's why it is really important to have like a handout with a takeaway as well as a way of collecting folks' information. So some people just like sign their name on a thing and they don't even look at what they're signing up for. But maybe if you reach out to them or you get them to follow your group on social media or something, that's a way that you can kind of capture their attention a little bit later. And it'll make, if you just have a quick chat with somebody and then they sign a petition or then they like end up volunteering, or it could really turn into real world action by making sure that we're following up with folks, and it builds the trust that's going to stick with the people in your community that you're working with, various community partners, etc. If they know that you're really invested in kind of maintaining that open line of communication, you're not just like there to collect their information and then just like do some plan about further communication. You want to make sure the line of communication is staying open, building that trust. The follow-up's really going to keep more people involved if they're on your social media, if they're on your email list, whatever lines of communication, they're going to be more attuned to other opportunities to participate in safe routes activities. It's just going to keep kind of this concept on their radar a long time after they've walked by that table that day. And also the follow-up's going to give us feedback on what's working so we can make our next outreach tabling even better. And once we get that feedback from folks, we really want to share it back. I just did some screenshots of like social media posts that I had helped make in the past after events. On the left, we show like a picture that I had taken at the engagement where people had drawn on the street. That's another thing you can do as an engagement activity is actually have folks draw on if you're kind of envisioning how a particular intersection could look, actually having an image that folks could draw an overlay and show their dream version of that street, and then taking pictures of that and sharing it back out. And then you can tag your city council member, you can tag the mayor, whoever, to see the people's vision. So it's really important not to just keep that feedback internally, to share it to community members, policymakers, et cetera, people who could really help advance that change that you're trying to see for safe routes. So this can look like a little social media recap, something like this, a blog post on your group's website, etc. That could be like a little one-page summary that you could share out in various ways. And you really want to emphasize this is what we heard from the community, and this is what we're going to do about it next in that feedback. And like I said, you want to just maintain that open line of connection. So just stay in touch with those folks, get them on your email list, get them to follow you on social media, get them signed up for some kind of upcoming event. And that's going to keep them engaged in the conversation. All right, and now we're going to unveil a new resource that y'all can.
Our official launch of a new resource.
Yeah.
Yeah, Laura, go ahead. I'm excited about this one.
Yeah, so this is sort of a kind of I tried to fit everything into like a printable two-page list, so you could just have this little outreach tabling list in a box. I put the yellow box to remind you that it's in a box, and print this out, laminate it, find it with those bright yellow edges really quickly whenever you need to do this. So this is kind of a list of everything you might want to have. You definitely don't need to have everything on here, but we have a subsection of the essentials. But everything you might want to have for doing safe routes outreach. And we might do a revamped version of this in the future with some of these great ideas that you guys are sharing. So I'll just kind of do next a little run through of what we have
Yeah, and
on
there's
this
there's
list.
a PDF of this checklist in the chat, and there's a link as well. We'll also share this in a follow-up email. So if you're trying to dig through the chat and can't find it, you'll get it. But yeah, we're excited to put this in your hands.
Great. So I'm just going to kind of like run through some of the stuff we're going to see on this checklist. So again, our essentials, we want to have tablecloth, something says that says we're talking about safe routes to school or whatever you're tabling for. Um, Having something to hold up those signs, having clipboards. Sometimes I've ended up wanting like 8 clipboards for all the stuff I'm trying to get people to sign up for and flyers I'm trying to hand out. So having clipboards, folders to keep all your papers from getting crumpled up. You might want to have scissors. You want to have zip ties to hang things up. They're always handy to have in your box. By the way, having a good box that you can just keep all your outreach stuff ready to go. It doesn't have to be like this process every time. If it's something you're going to be doing repeatedly, just having it ready to go in a box so it doesn't have to be a big lift every time.
I keep mine in IKEA bags, like in a big IKEA storage bags. Had them forever. Everything stays in there, really easy to move in and out.
Yeah, and I'm going to get into some other various like carrying solutions as well. If you're going to be there for like 6 hours or something, it's nice to have a power bank for your cell phone, especially if you're using that to collect photos and information. Charging cord, etc., hand sanitizer, all good stuff to have as your kind of most basic essentials. Next slide. So we also want to have core handouts, just like so people, I'm like, what is this table even about? What is Safe Routes to School? We have some good resources on our website of like flyers and essential resources that are pretty easily printable. Um, for your own community, you could make your own things based on like if there's really left a table with like a list of upcoming events that are related to your mission. If there's any opportunities for a bike ride or something like that coming up, great to have a flyer for that or just a list of all upcoming things. Like you could just have a little whiteboard or chalkboard that's like, come to this event, and this event over the next month. So folks can have that, having a QR code, something like that. Folks can sign up for something, an FAQ sheet that answers anyone's, kind of basic questions about what is safe routes, how could I get involved? And then if you have anything specific to the school or community you're working on, that would be great to include, as well as contact info. Sign up sheet, super important for maintaining that line of communication. You could also have a QR code. Like I know Canva makes it really easy to just like drop in you just like can drop in a QR code. There's other tools where if you've never done that, it's pretty easy to just create one, and then just have it immediately linked to whatever kind of sign up form you're liking to use. Some people also use like an iPad or a tablet for digital sign up, whatever works better for you, and maybe consent language if you're working with youth info as well. And then again, our quick engagement checklist. So we might want to have a vote board, tally sheet, or a hotspot kind of form. You could collect things. If people have like specific ideas of hotspots, you could create little cards to collect those as well.
Do you have a picture of those, Laura? I love the idea of like a hotspot report. I was just curious if you like an
Yeah, I
example of
didn't
what that
get
looks
to
like.
add a picture of that, but that's something that we could potentially share out
Yeah,
in the future for sure as another resource.
yeah, I love that idea.
I like to kind of like try to embody what we're advocating for. So if I can, I've loved to try to bike to events. We have a whole tabling setup. So I added this section of like some tips for if you want to do tabling via bicycle. So having a bike carry situation, panniers. I found this picture of someone having like a whole table set up on a cargo bike. Like even so, it's better if you don't have to bring your own table. It's much easier to manage, but even if you do, it's certainly possible with a cargo bike. So you want to have um, things like panniers, a rear rack that you can attach them to, or a basket. Things like bungee cords. It's great to have tons of cords, straps to attach things, front basket, a backpack just in case. Ideally, you don't want to have a lot of stuff on your back, but just in case you have a little overflow, a roll top dry bag, things like that to fit in your banner or any kind of like cloths, anything you're going to need to hang that up. Cargo bikes, certainly you're going to show up riding in style and people are going to be like, wow, that's so cool. You came here on your bike. I want to do that too. So.
I'm impressed by the setup. I do not go out do outreach on a cargo bike. So people who can do this, kudos to you. Very
Yes,
impressive.
but I just hope I can inspire the idea
Yes.
with some folks because it's certainly possible to do it. I had a friend who tabled sometimes for Bike Easy stuff in New Orleans who just had like it was literally like kitty litter boxes he attached as like kind of like DIY panniers, and but he was able to fit like all the tabling stuff in there. So that's
Amazing.
pretty cool to show what's possible on a bike. But general other kind of packing organization stuff, just having kind of like color coded pouches so you know immediately like where all your things are is super useful. Having folders, you could sort of like print and laminate our checklist there, so it's just kind of ready to go. Um, having little zip top bags for if you're going to have a bunch of like loose stickers and stuff so they're not just like flying loose all over your outreach box or your bag is super helpful. Always a good idea to have a first aid kit, especially if like you're going to do some bike ride component also as part of this, which might be part of your outreach tabling. Always being ready for weather. I know like here in New Orleans it's brutally hot sometimes, and we're like, wow, I really wish I brought the tent today. Or was
Or those
like
little mini
positioning
fans.
myself in shade or something like that. So just thinking about if you're going to be outside and whatever conditions and being ready with that for various layers, rain and sun protection, so forth. Some other bike-friendly display options if you don't want to bring like a massive tabling setup. They do make some very small folding tables that might be easier to fit on a regular bike frame. A little compact banner stand. They have these little compact pole ones that like fit this small and just a little tabletop sign. So it is very possible to do like a very full in-depth complete street setup in a pretty compact setup. So tent, if you are going to be outside in the sun and don't want to burn yourself up and the people you're trying to talk to, having a tent, definitely good to have extra hands around for setting up and breaking down tents as they can be a little bit cumbersome. Sometimes extension cord if you're going to need that for if you have any kind of if you're going to have a laptop plugged in for like if you're collecting like membership information or something like that. You can have an extra little sign, a yard sign to kind of get folks knowing about your table if they're like at some other part of the event, directing them over, and then having a name tag just to like be friendly and approachable, let people know your name, or if you have folks from different groups involved, they can have that on their name tag as well. Visuals, again, super into visuals, having before and after photos, I think, too. Showing people what good safe routes looks like is something folks are going to be really interested in just seeing. If they see an example in their own community, they're going to want to make a comment on it. So having good visuals, having little route maps as a take home is another really cool, fun thing that you could offer as well. Other safety mini resources we can hand out, checklists, safety resources. There's lots of safety tips, downloadable stuff on our website, and other Safe Routes groups have a lot of great resources that are already existing, like little bookmarks, a starter guide to starting a walking school bus, things like that are all great resources, as well as things like lights and reflectors that folks can take home. And then sort of some of our bonus activity materials are here as well, like our backdrops, stuff you would want to document for um, the photo booth as well, like a tripod, a way for folks to make their own little signs, etc. And then again, for the visioning map for dot voting, we want to have a big printed map. We want to have stickers, or I saw in the comments someone suggested a really cool magnet idea because sometimes I have like that one big map. I remember a lot of people's like things fell off before someone took a good picture of it. So always remember to document the feedback that you're collecting as well.
Yeah, and I think this is like just if we want to do a comment board, all that you need there, paper, sticky notes, markers. So all the examples that Laura and I talked about, we just put a little mini checklist in the big checklist that you all can choose what activities you want and make sure that you have all of the materials. And then all the
Yep.
bonus giveaways, like we talked about with the we're not getting rid of the swag bag. We still love it. We're just trying to add a few more tools into your toolbox here. So some things for bonus giveaways as well. Laura, do you want to wrap us up with our final takeaway? I think we got
Yes.
most people's questions. There's a
Yes.
question about mock, like pedestrian, like safety activities, not reach tabling. So we can follow up in an email about with that information for sure. But we also hope that this was helpful. Hope the checklist is helpful. And just wanted to give you a few final takeaways to send you off feeling really good about the future outreach tabling that you'll be doing. So Laura, I'll have you round us out for today.
Sure. Yeah. So just remember, keep your mission kind of in mind in your conversations with folks. So be intentional. Don't overwhelm people with too much. Just keep it simple. Like, what can we do to be able to walk or bike safely to school or to wherever we're going? And center people. Just, it's not about. Don't make it too much about infrastructure heavy or use too much jargon. Just make it about people being able to access destinations. Um, And that's about it. We're at time here.
Yes, that is a wrap on our first webinar of 2026. Thank you all so much for being here. Thank you for your questions, your comments, your ideas and resources. I love when we have like a nice active chat with people sharing and connecting. So thanks for being a part of that journey with us. If you have other questions, feel free to reach out to me. I'll share Laura's email as well. We also have our wonderful Safe Routes to School Google group. So if you're not a part of that group, you can email our communications director, Margot, and she can add you. And then please take our post-webinar survey. It should pop up when you hop off today, and it takes 30 seconds or less to complete. So we would love to hear how we can do better, what you might want to hear more about, and we just really appreciate your feedback and your participation. So thanks so much. Nice to see you all, and we will be in touch with the recording, the slide deck, the links, and the information about more upcoming webinars. So more from us very shortly. Thank you all and have a wonderful rest of your day. We'll see you soon. And thanks, Laura, your first webinar with us. Yay for
Yay.
Laura. Thanks, everyone.
Thank
See you
y'all.
next time. Bye.